Good day, everyone. My name is Yu-Ching. I'm very happy to participate in the International Conference on the Economics, Business, the Tourism, and Social Science today. I would like to, on behalf of my team, to present our topic using the geosystem theory and AHP method in smartphone conceptual design decision making. Our topic has the four sessions. The first is introduction, the second is the methodology, third is the result and discussion, the fourth is the conclusions. Recent years, with the rapid changes in the technology issue, it changing the consumer lifestyle and the consumer demands has become very diverse and difficult to grasp. However, how good your product or service is, the simple thing is that there is no one want to buy it if they don't want it or believe they don't need it. To the end, all the organizations and companies must be need to facing this rapid change. It's shown in shortening the product life cycle issue. When maintain and need strengthen the product development and design procedures to accurately grasp to the need of the customers. The successful introduction of the new product penetration in the market will have a more positive response from the consumer in terms of the needs and the preference. It's the user need and preference, not those of the designers. They should be taken into the consideration during the product design process due to the fact that many differences between the designer and users. It is the challenging for the designer to transfer the consumer needs into the technical and design specification. Consumers' real needs are oftentimes overlooked during the product development process. As a result, finding the product that meet the customer demands rely on the planning of the entry process. The designers in development of the new product will be facing complex and difficult problems when they did not know the popular trending pattern or not clear of the market trend and that of the user needs. Based on it will research will explore the relationship between the needs and the desire of the customers toward a product, how average consumer or user associated with the different type of the product and features connect with the adjective, the vocabulary expression. Furthermore, this study also explores how the consumers express through the vocabulary of the adjective words to identify the purpose of the consumer through the presentation of the adjective in the vocabulary. And this will help the designer to know the ideal product design appearance to design. Designer can quickly identify the preference of the user towards select the product shape over the appearance and then similarly shorten the product design process. This by energizing the emotion, the adjective vocabulary test with the combination of the principle of the shape and grade system theory method. This study will focus on two. The first, to understand the customer demand for the different type of the product shape, characteristic element of the correspondence through the emotional vocabulary. The second, for the establishment of the sensory image in the association of the patterns of the different type of the product characteristics between the elements through the grade system theory and the AHP method to design the suitable design to assist the designer in the product design process. The mini methodology have two. The first is an analytic hierarchy process. In AHP, a decision hierarchy is constructed with a goal, criteria, and alternative. The criteria are prioritized, compared for their importance with respect to the goal to derive a scale of the relative importance, and the alternatives are prioritized, compared with respect to each criterion up to the derived relative scales. Here we'll use the AHP method as the base for the adjective vocabulary. The second is the grade system theory. The grade system theory was intended in 1982 by the Dr. Deng Jilong from China. This system, which lack of information, such as a structural message, operation mechanism, and then behavior document, are referred to as gray system. The black represent having no information, and then white represent having all information. A gray system has a level of the information between the black and white. This analysis can be used to represent the graph of the correlation between the two sequences so that the distance of the two vectors can be measured directly. In this study, it will use the grade relational analysis for the sample selection. Our research process has 4 stages. The first stage is the data creation. The second stage is to establish the customer requirement towards a product design feature through the vocabulary. The stage 3 is the vocabulary of the imaging analysis. The stage 4 is integrate the GRA with the AHP method in the evaluation of the product shape. Results and discussion. Adjective vocabulary confirmation. The first stage of the procedure is data collection. The collected data will be used to determine the target product type, and the data then be discussed to find the adjective vocabulary that matching the target type of the product with the target product samples. The target product adjective derived from the relevant research paper, market data, internet, and the product catalogs will then be selected and extracted. The creation of the adjective vocabulary derived total is the 216. From this amount, we narrow down to 121 for the final select vocabulary by removing the part of the meaning that overlap or have the same meaning. The second stage is to establish the customer needs and the product design feature vocabulary. At this stage, it will divide into 2 parts. One part is for the customer needs, emotional vocabulary, and the other is for the product feature. The emotional vocabulary part in the customer's demand, application of the KZ method is used to determine the distinctive, the adjective vocabulary. This method is to find the most appropriate adjective vocabulary content picked or chosen by the user. Through this questionnaire survey, the close selection of the adjective vocabulary toward a product will be put into the statistics for the calculation analysis. As you see, smartphone is our case study. We use the Takuchi method to define the developed scope and to make the selection associated with the design concept to generate the minimum value of the orthogonal array from the testing sample. Based on the product structure data in Figure 1, 7 factors of the shape size has been determined. The Takuchi orthogonal array calculation is used to calculate the smartphone sample. Based on the computing result, 32 test sample. So the character attribute of the orthogonal array are the L32, 4, 7. This table is the smartphone dimension scopes. We use this to match with the orthogonal array to generate the 32 smartphone samples. Here is the sample using the orthogonal array to get the result. Based on the vocabulary image analysis data result, a target product emotional vocabulary database and image library can be established. We use the 3D software SolidWorks to create our samples. According to the sample result of the combination of the adjective vocabulary derived from the questionnaire result, and an average of the value is calculated using the SPSS statistical software. From there, they have the 6 groups of the smartphone are be derived from the dendrogram of the cluster analysis is shown on the table beside here. Weight calculation of AHP. In this stage, through the result of the questionnaire, the comparison of the vocabulary adjective can be made. The assessment of the implementation was influenced by the various factors in order to expedite comparison of the metric table. From the result of the comparison metric table, it can be determined the right ranking of the adjective vocabulary. During the investigation, there are 33 designers from the different companies were invited to participate in this study. From the questionnaire survey result, a total of the 121 words of the adjective vocabulary derived from the smartphone. The total percentage calculated using the static method, showing that after some points, the percentage of the adjective vocabulary result significantly dropped below than the 50%. So in order to simplify the calculation, the result of the more than 50% is chosen, and it will be a total of the 11 groups for the select adjective vocabulary chosen by majority of the customer. This can be depicted in Table 2. Here is a table showing the adjective vocabulary have the 11 groups. After the comparison pairing of the adjective vocabulary depending on the various levels, the first in the overall appearance of the proportion part is the depicted in the table 3, in which the geometric means the expression will be put the abbreviation as the GM and the weight result as W. In the relationship of smartphone, after the completion of the calculation process of the weight of the product adjective, the GRA is applied to represent the graph of the correlation between the two sequences so that the distance of the two factors can be measured directly. After completion of the comparison data received by the user who answered the questionnaire, the data then will be organized accordingly by through the embedded questionnaire. For the smartphone, the total valid questionnaire are divided at 51. The average score is calculated to proceed to the next step of the GRA. 32 groups of the sample product are derived for the smartphone and 11 vocabulary sets have been allocated for the product model and vocabulary. Therefore, in the case of the smartphone, according to the survey of the adjective vocabulary inference, the weight adjective of the modern versus traditional shows 0.32, whereas the simple versus complex adjective is 0.59. This can be said to determine the mean adjective vocabulary for the group. According to the result of the GRAHP, the smartphone sample number 13 is close to the ideal pattern of the favorable of consumers' preference. And to simplify the result for the clustering analysis, the top ranking out of 10, 6 score the highest and belongs to the first group. This means that if the designers want to make a decision, they have more choices of the sample to perform. The first fitting sample of the group representing the shape that is close to the consumer's needs. Furthermore, the classic shape that has been identified for the smartphone of the first group of the sample is generally long and narrow screen, and the left and the right screen spacing only experience fewer changes. The major changes are the upper and the lower part of the frame screen spacing. This means that the consumers preference the lonely wide phone with the big screen size. Therefore, the first group of the product sample can be good reference for the designer to design the smartphone. Through this study, our conclusions have three. The first, the grade system theory can be applied to the product shape analysis because the design aesthetic and emerging shape vocabulary were helped in the process of the invariant and this study analysis. The combination of the HB and GRA method can be more easy to identify the relevance of the product shape, character, form, and beauty of the adjective emerging vocabulary. Through the GRA, the marketing position for the product innovation also can be done, and this analysis also can help the designer to design on the product design development, reference, and evaluation. This study particularly can quickly identify which the customer need with the use the adjective vocabulary. The beauty of the product can be elevated and help increase the performance of the product shape efficiently. It also gives the clear direction of the designer to design the product. Thank you for your listening.